everybody. It is Ryan Miracle with Ruoff Mortgage Next Level CE here with Dustin Griffiths and Oliver Chapman. So thank you guys so much for joining us for the live stream this morning. I know that you guys could be spending your time anywhere else, but we appreciate it that you're spending it with us. So the question that we're going to go over today to make sure we're getting as most out of your time as possible, we're going to go over what is the best way to structure your business. Now, you're going to hear a lot of different things from the people that are on screen today, but really the reason we're bringing you this information is because after we all get licensed, we're pushed into the deep end. And really what that amounts to is we're, by our brokers, by the licensing agency, we're not taught how to swim, not taught how to defend ourselves, how to grow our business. So that's why we're here today, is to help you answer some of those questions that you may have. Now, whether you're watching now live right now or on the replay, drop your questions and we'll be happy to get to them. So first thing I want to do is I want to introduce the gentlemen that are on the screen with me. So here with me in the studio today is Oliver Chapman with KW. And then the other guy on the screen is Dustin. And you're in Utah, right?
I am in Utah, correct.
Yeah, well, thank you for logging in so early. Hopefully we didn't disturb your routine.
Nope. My 2.5-year-old was up banging on his wall at 2 o'clock this morning, wanting out of his room. So
happens to the best of us, man.
Yeah, it's true.
So what we're going to do first is start with Oliver. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you bring to the table, and then Dustin will get to you, and then we'll get rolling with what we're going to talk about.
Well, thanks for having me as your guest, Ryan. I don't know how much I bring to the table, but I think I bring a little bit. I've been in the industry 8 years now. That's really flown by really fast when I think about it, because I still feel like I'm a new agent, but I guess, getting to be a veteran these days. And started real estate 8 years ago. I was always in sales, hated corporate life. Was good at sales, but just hated the corporate aspect of going to work every day and punching in a 9 to 5. So one day I had a friend who was starting a real estate brokerage, and he said, "Hey, do you want to learn how to make some real money?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm listening." He said, "Well, why don't you get your real estate license?" And I said, "You know what? My mother did it for 25 years. And I always told her when I was growing up, Mom, I want to have your job." So it was really the perfect time for me to kind of jump into the industry. And so I went real quick, got my license. First year, like any other agent, stumbled my way through it, closed a few deals just out of pure adrenaline, but really didn't know what I was doing.
Like most of us.
Like most of us when they start real estate. And I'm always, amazed that I love these stories and people are closing 100 deals and things their first year. I'm like, where do they learn how to do that? So that is incredible. But as time went on, by about year 2 or 3, we found some traction. Okay. And again, I had a good sales background. I was not afraid to cold call, wasn't afraid to knock doors, but that's not what we're really here to talk about from that strategy standpoint. But I started to realize I am a business, I am a brand, and I have to run my sales company as a business. Right. And I think a lot of us get into real estate, forget that this is a business. You're your own business. You're a 1099 contractor. Exactly. You're not a W-2 employee anymore. So it took a few years, and we'll get into that more in my story as this conversation goes on. But anyways, fast forward to today, I have a really small nimble team that we're actually growing this year, and we'll talk about the leverage piece of the business later on. But that's where we're at today.
Nice. What about you, Dustin?
So my name's Dustin Griffiths. I'm a CPA. I'm based out of Utah. I wanted to be an architect. I thought that was my original path. Loved drafting in high school. Went to university. Got into my first. It was actually my second semester of architecture classes, and they were the only classes that I ever pulled all-nighters in.
Wow.
And I had a class that I came to class with a project that was so drastically different than everyone else, and got pointed out for it very quickly in the beginning of class, and thought, and this was after one of those all-nighters, and I thought, this just really doesn't work. I'm not whatever right-brained it is, I'm not artistic enough. And at that point, I had always loved numbers. My dad had been a CPA, and had taken that into real estate development, actually. And I thought, everyone's always going to have money, and they're going to need help with it. So I think it's a fairly secure position, and switched my majors and went and got an accounting degree. While I was doing that, I interned at a tax firm. and found I really enjoyed taxes. It was a fun game to play, fun game to understand, like what's going on and how can I affect what happens with somebody's taxes by either planning ahead, or there are even a few things that you can change on a tax return. And there's 70,000 pages of IRS tax code, and there's always places, always things to go dive into, little niches, things you can try to find. So started doing that and found I loved it, and went through a couple of different places, and about 2 years ago, went out on my own, run my own little shop now, and really enjoy that. I am a golf addict. Oliver and I,
Guilty.
yes, join on that, but works great. I'm really busy during the cold winter months in Utah when it snows, and I don't like the snow. And during the summer months, I get to sneak out a little bit and play some golf. So
that's awesome.
It works really
One
well.
of the cool things is both of you guys are legacy. So your parents did it, and then you guys got into it too.
Yeah. I didn't realize that. That's true.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Well, I mean, my dad worked for GM for 30 years, so I don't think real estate and assembly line work kind of go hand in hand. But all that being said, that's really cool that you guys have that tie.
Yeah.
So what we're going to talk about next. So there's 3 things that we're going to focus on today. Is 1, the finances, 2, the legal, and then 3, how to actually structure your team so you guys can be efficient and ideally have the ability to be able to step away from the business and it still operate. Because that's kind of the goal. That's the goal for our team, and I know that's what you're working towards, and I'm sure you too, Dustin.
Yes.
Yeah, to still get paid without work. So that would be ideal. So Oliver, why don't you tell me about some of the things that you have done or learned maybe the hard way about how to structure the actual finances and how to manage your money?
Yeah, how much time you got?
Let's give us a couple of your big ahas.
Well, yeah. Going back when I look in the earlier days of my business, I ran everything out of a personal checking account. I came from this corporate W-2 world, and one day I'm making commissions, and that just went into my checking account, and I wasn't really planning ahead. I just, I didn't make much money from my previous job, so I was like, when these nice, $5, $6, $7, $8, $9, $10,000 checks are coming in your bank account, it's pretty nice.
You know what to do with it.
Yeah, I didn't know what to do with it. But so I spent
buy new golf clubs. That's the answer.
Well, and see, that's the thing is most of us, the money as soon as they get to the account, it's gone.
Yes, golf will take up a lot of that budget.
That's right.
Yeah. But I'm not even ashamed to say it. Is the first few years in the business, I got behind with the IRS, and one day I looked up and you get a letter in the mail, and it was the IRS wants their money, and I was like, well, that wasn't smart.
Yeah, Uncle Sam don't play.
Uncle Sam don't play around. So luckily, I had a plan that really shook me. I think it was just a splash of cold water in the face that I need to be more careful with my finances.
Yeah.
So going forward, and this was a couple years later, I met Dustin here actually. And Dustin was a great referral to me by one of my coaches.
Okay.
And we started really unpacking the layers of what a real estate business looks like. But before I met Dustin, I will say I did pick up a great book. It's called The E-Myth for Real Estate Agents.
I've heard that one.
Yeah, and it really in like a layman's terms will show you how the money needs to flow through the business. Okay. So I did get first things first. I had to set up a corporation. I did set up an LLC. And from the LLC, I started a business checking account, and then from that business checking account, just I have an expense account, or I guess all the money in my business comes into my checking account, and then we create an operating account, then we create a savings account for the IRS, and then I get to pay myself after all of those buckets have been filled. But we took it another layer deeper, and I'll defer to Dustin here in a little bit, but when I got introduced to Dustin, Dustin said, these are some of the right steps you're taking. Mm-hmm. We need to take it a little bit further, and I didn't have a bookkeeper at the time. I didn't know what my real expenses were. I didn't know how profitable my business was. I just know, hey, I get all this money and then I pay all these people. And at the end of the day, I have a little bit left over, and that's what I make.
And that's such a common thing. And I made that mistake too, and I'm W-2. So I think that kind of goes back to, we're not taught these skills. And especially when it comes to running a business, Dustin, you can probably chime in on this, that you see how many new clients that come in and just everything is a mess, or they're running everything out of one account. So, I mean, a lot of the mistakes that you've made, I've made myself, and I'm sure Dustin sees on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's true. It's like even worse than well, not worse than just one account. One account isn't necessarily the worst thing ever. It's just not the best thing, right? If we run with the phrase "good, better, best," I heard that at church, at the church that I attend. Somebody gave a discussion about good, better, best. Right? There are good things that we can do, then there are better things, and then there are the best things. Running all your business out of one bank account is a good thing. There are better things, and then there are best things. And so it's about making sure that you have a good understanding as to why those are better or best things, so that it makes sense and you want to do them, right? I can come in all day and tell you to do A, B, C, X, Y, Z, but if it doesn't make sense to you and you don't understand it and you don't think it's for your benefit, it's never going to happen. So understanding that, for me, that's one of the things, right? There's a lot of jargon when it comes to the IRS and to the taxes. And I will apologize to everyone. If anyone has ever talked to me, I probably use some of that jargon, but I do my best to take a step back, right? And to make sure that somebody understands what the jargon means to them, so that they can make the decision on their own, so that it becomes a lasting change.
That's awesome. And I think we're guilty of the jargon thing too. We just get in our routine and we just run. Right? So after you kind of figured out the one single account system didn't work, what'd you do then?
So I got a business account.
Okay.
So I went to my bank, I set up my LLC, I set up my business accounts, and I set up my different buckets. And that way I could see the money going through my business.
Okay. And
I started learning how to pay myself. And, you learn some financial models along the way, like I'm a Keller Williams agent. So they teach you, Gary's model is, you're going to be at best 40% profitable. So, you really only keep about 40% of your gross income.
Right.
The rest of that needs to go back into your business and needs to pay Uncle Sam. Now there's, you can learn other tax-free wealth strategies. And, that's why I hired a CPA, because I needed to learn how to lower my obligation to the IRS, because it was very high. And I'm happy to say, by hiring that CPA, my tax liability got cut in half. And that was, it was bittersweet. I looked back at all the money I paid the IRS, and it's like, it makes you sick, but going forward, I feel very good about where I'm at in my business now. That's and good. With Dustin's help, we've cut that liability significantly.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I've always been told is the lessons that we remember and we stick to come from a broken heart, an empty belly, and an empty wallet. So those are three very emotional things. And we tend to learn those lessons when they are tied to that emotion. So that's awesome. And I think that a lot of the realtors that I talk to, they run that single account.
Yeah.
So what was that book again that you mentioned?
Oh, that's called the it's the E-Myth, but then they have a real estate specific version of the E-Myth.
Okay. So on the replay, what we'll do is we'll drop that in the chat, so that way you guys can have that. Click on it. So do you recommend, have you done the audio or the book?
I did the audio.
Okay.
And it's fantastic. And I believe that one does, I like when the author, actually narrates. And I think that one has some of the author narrating some of the book.
That's awesome. So yeah, we'll put that in the description for the replay. So now that you've got your money tight, are you seeing your business being able to grow easier?
Well, absolutely. We were able this year to finally start implementing some leverage, and now I have a small payroll. So that's new for me. And I'm taking baby steps for me to have a payroll from where I was. That's totally new.
Yeah.
But it was so easy to set up. And now, it's so much, I can't tell you how much more peaceful it is to go to bed knowing all of my finances are running through the way they need to be run through. And, and it allows me to keep growing my business and doing more fun things.
Right.
We keep adding more fun things to my business because I finally learned how profitable I finally was.
So I think what that's akin to, one of my favorite authors is Mike Michalowicz, and we're going to get into some more of his books here in a minute, but one of the books that he just released is called Fix This Next. So just like we have Maslow's hierarchy of needs, so food, water, shelter, emotional comfort, those kind of things. So he talks about the business hierarchy of needs. So the first level, the most basic level, is sales. So, and that's where a lot of us get stuck and we stay, is in that sales mentality, is we're trying to constantly bring in new revenue.
Because that's where the money is.
Well,
People
exactly.
That's where they focus. I need more money. I need more money.
Exactly. So once you get the sales thing locked down and you're a good salesperson, and I've seen you bring in buku number of clients each and every year. So you're good at that. But the next thing, the next graduation to that, and you've done that already, is profit. So if you are not setting aside profit, then you are constantly your accounts are constantly running on empty. You don't know where your money went, money in, money out. But once you fix the profit thing, and I'm glad to see that Dustin helped you fix that, the next thing after that is efficiency. So we're not going to get into the efficiency thing quite yet. That's going to be my piece. But when it comes to the profit, you could see from Oliver's case, I've been through the same thing, and Dustin's probably helped many clients who fixed this and elevated their business, that the profit side is a huge component that we tend to overlook as people that are new to real estate or even seasoned agents. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to toss it to Dustin, and he's going to talk about the legal side, like actually how to structure your business. So Dustin, what are some of the most, if I was a new agent, came into your office today, say, I don't know anything, what would be the process that you would guide me through as to how would we a la carte structuring my business legally?
Sure. So there are a couple of things. Number one, I am going to start by saying, if you have liability questions, if you're worried about somebody suing you and what that might look like, those are really attorney discussions, right? And so when we're talking about setting up businesses, that's the attorney side of things. On my side, it's going to be primarily tax, and what does that mean, and how can we financially really utilize these items. I'm glad that you brought up Mike Michalowicz. He read some good stuff. So there are a couple of things that I'll reference as well from him. But the first thing is just understanding, again, from a tax side, what does being a contractor mean in the eyes of the IRS? What does that mean for you tax-wise with the IRS? And to start, even if you don't legally have a business set up, if you get paid 1099, the IRS views you as a business. When you go and you file your taxes, that's what's on a Schedule C. It's a business filing form. Okay. As a Schedule C individual or contractor or business owner, whatever we want to call it, that the profit or the amount after expenses is going to be subject to Social Security, Medicare, federal, and then depending upon where you live, state tax. Depending upon where you live, you might also have local tax, or New York City has borough taxes in addition, right? There's a whole number of different layers. And so really it gets down to the point where you're potentially paying somewhere between 40 to 45% of your tax, right? That's going to be the upper end. Lower end is probably in the 30 range. So 30% of your revenue to the IRS is frankly a little bit ridiculous, right? And so now we're talking about getting a business and how does it help? Well, a piece of clarification here, setting up an LLC that's owned by you 100% actually doesn't do anything for you.
Really?
And the reason why that is that the IRS doesn't recognize an LLC. An LLC is a great legal entity, right? It creates liability protection. It's probably the most well-known entity type. And so people go set up an LLC. Well, that doesn't actually do anything when it comes to taxes. When an LLC is owned 100% by one person or a business, the IRS calls that a disregarded entity. What that ultimately means is, in their eyes, it does not exist. So Oliver had the LLC for a couple of years before we started chatting, what hadn't happened is that somebody hadn't told him that doesn't do anything for you tax-wise. And so you got to take that to the next step. We got to get the IRS to recognize the LLC as something else. And
I think I just opened that. I'm sorry to interrupt. I think it was open just because somebody told me I needed a business checking account. So it's like, okay, how do you get a business check account? LLC. Okay, so I get an LLC. Okay, I'm a business,
Yeah.
It's official.
Yeah.
Yes, it's official. So the IRS knows what's called a sole proprietor. Well, that's the scenario that we were just kind of talking about. I'm the business. I file on what's called a Schedule C. So that's a sole proprietor. They know partnerships, which is multiple people in a business together. They know S corporations, which is generally the most popular for operating companies. And then they know C corporations. And C corporations are for large businesses or businesses that have lots of unrelated individuals where stock is issued. And so what happens is we want to take an LLC is great, but then we want to take an LLC into one of the other structures, right? One of the other ways that the IRS is going to recognize. For married people, the initial thought is, oh, great, I'm just going to put my wife on and we're going to be a partnership. Now we're getting into how are different entities being taxed. Partnerships, the way that they are taxed is that there are technically two types of partners. There are active partners and there are passive partners. Active partners are the ones who are running the day-to-day operations of the business. Passive partners, you can think of, just they're in the background, not really doing much. Maybe they were a cash investor and they're just sitting on the sidelines. The IRS subjects active partners to Social Security and Medicare tax. And that's on top of then federal tax, state tax, local taxes. The passive partners are not subject to Social Security and Medicare tax. And that's where the tax savings come into effect, right? With a partnership, active versus passive. Well, there's a 2-line section in the IRS tax code that states that the activity level of a spouse is allocated to the other spouse. So if I'm active in a company and my wife's in the company and I'm active because I'm running the day-to-day operations and she would otherwise be passive because she's not doing anything, the IRS says she's active because I'm active. And when that happens, now we're to the point of no tax benefits in a husband-wife partnership, right? Now, if I have another individual on there, maybe, but for the purposes of, I think, the people we're talking about, you're going to be the active individual. And so there's no tax savings in a partnership for you. So now we go to the next step of an S corporation. In an S corporation, money comes out in 2 ways. One, to a CEO, or the person who's running the day-to-day operations of the business, and that person gets paid a salary or a W-2 wage. When we pay salary or payroll, there's taxes being withheld, Social Security and Medicare tax. And being a W-2 of your own company, you're having to pay Social Security and Medicare tax on whatever you pay yourself as a salary. And that's what the IRS expects. They expect in an S corporation that someone will get paid a salary. And it has to be, quote unquote, reasonable, right? That's going to be a major audit trigger for the IRS. Within an S corporation, the other way money comes out is to owners, and owners take draws or dividends. And those draws or dividends are not subject to the Social Security and Medicare tax. And so that's where the tax savings occur. And it's okay for someone to wear both hats, right? I'm both the CEO of my company and the owner of my company. And so some of the money comes to me as a salary and some of the money comes to me as an owner draw.
Okay.
And that's how I'm eliminating Social Security and Medicare tax on some of those funds. And that's creating tax savings for me. We've got C corporations. Typically, you want to stay away from C corporations because the business itself pays tax, income taxes, and then you, the individual, pay income taxes again. So it's being taxed twice, and typically you want to stay away from those.
Gotcha. So which one did you settle with?
We went to an S corp.
Yeah, is there any particular reason?
Well, just as Dustin said there before, and he can talk to it more eloquently. I can't, but I know by me now being a W-2 employee, we're paying. I guess Dustin, explain to him how. Yeah.
So I will. Are you okay if I give some actual numbers off of a couple of years' returns for you?
That's fine.
Okay. In 2019, which was the last year that Oliver had somebody else do his taxes, he paid $22,000 in Social Security and Medicare tax.
That's sick.
In 2020, when we began working together, he paid $6,800 in Social Security and Medicare tax.
Wow. So what did you charge him for a fee that year?
I charged him $14,000. No, I didn't. Right. But I think we were probably $1,000 for returns. And so, and that includes a business return and an individual return. So
huge investment. That's awesome.
It was a no-brainer.
Yeah, exactly.
And then on this, like, again, in his company, they do more if you need it. I just wanted a bookkeeper. I wanted to learn more about my business finances. So they still help me with that regard. But as you just saw, I don't care what he was charging. I saved a lot of money.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
And there's, and so, right, primarily one of the things we're looking at is tax savings here. And I want to make sure that I'm providing value. So if I'm going to charge somebody, let's say $1,000 for a business return and their individual return, because now it's more complex. If they're only going to save, $1,050 by making the switch to have that business, it's probably not worth it, right? Let's not go through the headache and the hassle for you to save $50, right? It's as you start to get to these larger numbers that it makes a lot more sense, and that's where I fit better with someone. And so that transition point where the tax savings achieved are significantly more than the fees works out to be about $10,000 of profit. So it's not a very big number, right? If I make $30,000 in GCI and I've got $20,000 in expenses, it makes sense to make the switch, to have a business return filed, to do all of these things, because the Social Security and Medicare tax savings are more than whatever it's going to cost in a fee. So that's one thing. And then to Oliver's point, yes, we do a lot more. It's important for somebody to understand where they are at with their money. And this is where bookkeeping comes in, right? If somebody just, as a matter of fact, I don't accept shoe boxes full of receipts.
Oh, come on.
I know. What a jerk CPA. I just won't do it, right? I won't do it because, number one, it makes no sense for somebody to pay me an hourly rate, which, by the way, I hate charging hourly rates. I don't want to keep track of my time. I'm a little lazy that way, right? I don't want to be like 6-minute increments. Bless attorneys, they're a necessary evil, but I couldn't stand doing that, right? And so I don't want to charge somebody an hourly rate. And number two, if they show up with a shoebox of receipts, that just tells me they have no idea where they're at. I don't know how much money I made. Here's just all my stuff. Give me some numbers. So bookkeeping is a really important thing. Understanding your numbers along the way and making business decisions based on factual numbers rather than emotional feelings is a key to making your business successful. Looking in a bank account after a large commission check comes in and being like, awesome, I'm going to go play Pebble Beach on a dream golf vacation at $5,000 when I really don't have that money is not a good thing, right? And so bookkeeping is being able to look at historical information to make sure you understand what's happening with your finances. And then that goes in conjunction with managing your cash. Oliver talked about buckets. Mike Michalowicz wrote a book called Profit First. I really like the book. I'm not sold on his 4 accounts, right? He has a tax, profit, OPEX, and owner pay accounts. Those are the buckets he sets up. For me, every business is a little bit different, right? Maybe somebody wants an education bucket so they can continually be learning. Maybe somebody wants a future investment account. Maybe somebody wants right? I have what I call my profit share account. It's the account that I put money in out of all of my earnings so that I can bonus employees and say thank you to them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So every business is a little bit different, but the theory that Mike talks about and E-Myth talks about, and there's another system called Financial Freedom Nation, and Robert Kiyosaki with his envelope system. They're all doing the same thing, right? They're all having us just take our money that's in one giant lump sum and earmarking it for certain things and putting it in places so that we don't go and spend it irrationally and irresponsibly.
No, it's really great to hear you say that, because once again, going back to kind of the financial illiteracy that our country has, I mean, I see it in my clients. You probably see it in your clients too, that they're saving for down payment, and then over time that starts to get chipped away at. So having a Christmas fund, having a fund for down payment, having a fund in your case to bonus your employees when the time's right, it's awesome. So what I want you to talk about next is the distinction about when you guys allocate the buckets, or when the money comes in, and then how, or what's the next step once the money comes in.
Sure. So I think everyone's going to be different, right? If we're talking about someone who has less quantity of transactions but larger dollar figures, like real estate agents have, I would do it probably off every commission until you get to the point that you're having, if you're getting to the point that you're having 10 or 15 closings a month, okay, maybe now we're talking about doing it with a different regularity. Mike talks about a 2-week cycle, basically. And so with someone that has, like for me, I have lots of smaller dollar value transactions. And so I do mine every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks, I jump in, I look at what my deposits were. I have a spreadsheet set up that I plug in my deposits, and it tells me exactly how much to transfer into all the other accounts. And then I just go make my transfers. Takes me about 6 minutes twice every 2 weeks.
And so that's really easy to commit to as long as you schedule it.
It's super easy.
Yeah.
And so if we're talking about somebody's getting $10,000 or $15,000 in a commission a couple of times a month or 3 times a month, I would probably just do that. When the commission comes in, I'd log in, I'd dump in my commission into my Excel sheet. It would tell me where to transfer the money, and I'd take the 6 minutes and go do it right then.
Nice.
And that's what I do. I just get every time I get a commission, I log into my, my online account, and I just move the money. And I just do a simple calculation on my calculator, and I know, here, this goes here, that goes there.
Time to pay myself.
And I don't even have to pay myself anymore. I can do those owner distributions, as he talked about, when I see fit. So now that I'm a W-2 employee from my S Corp, I'm still getting paid every month. And then if I feel like, the business is doing good, it's up to me how much I want to bonus myself at any given time.
Right. So when you first started, I heard you mention that when you would get paid, you would pay all of your bills. Mm-hmm. And then whatever was left over is what you saved or what you lived off of.
Yes.
So what I want you guys to catch here is these guys and the authors that we've talked about, pick your favorite author. They're talking about as soon as the money comes in, before you pay a single bill, before you pay yourself, you are sending that money to pay your taxes for an account for Uncle Sam, an account for payroll, an account for operating expenses, an account for debt reduction. So as soon as the money comes in, you are sending it exactly where it needs to go, because as we've kind of all seen, what Dustin sees with his clients is if you just leave that in one account, you're going to eventually start chipping away at it, and then there's nothing left for the future. So as soon as money comes in, send it where it's got to go, and then move on with your day.
Yeah. And you got to also know what your expenses are. So, having reserves, I think it's really important. There's no financial literacy to real estate. Mm-hmm. You go through, getting your license and any brokerage you're at. They everybody, there's no classes. There's so much education, but nobody teaches you how to be financially literate in this industry. So you have to seek out, other professionals, because I didn't do accounting, in college, or if I did, I didn't make a good grade on it. So, it took seeking out, I mean, you can try to learn it on your own. There's some people that I think you can learn it on their own.
Mhm.
People like me, I'm just not wired to learn on my own. And I'd rather just leave it in the hands of the professional, somebody that does know what they're doing, and have them run it for me.
Yeah, build your team.
Yeah.
So to that, is there anything that you wanted to add to that, Dustin?
I think, well, to add, yes, I wish that everyone was required in, maybe even as like a senior in high school, to have I wish they had finance classes, and finance classes that didn't talk about, oh, this is how you go and invest money. Like finance classes for the real world, right? How do you balance a checkbook? Now, nobody does that anymore, but the theory behind balancing a checkbook is still good theory, right? But yes, to the point of, one of the things you talked about is setting money aside for the IRS. The coach that Oliver has, that's how we met. He calls his tax account his country donations account, because it makes him feel better. It doesn't hurt as much. Right? So
Every time I hear that, it makes me laugh.
It's sometimes he says it, I'm like, why are we donating money? Oh, country donations. That's right. Taxes. You're not just being philanthropic so much. So, but yeah, it is so important to just understand. And to Oliver's point, like I like the idea of real estate. I've had a couple, I have a home, I've had a rental, I've done some of these things. Sure, I could have went and listed myself and done the contracts. I don't want to do that. It's not worth my time to do that. And generally speaking, for real estate agents, it's probably not worth your time to do some of these things. Now, maybe in the beginning when you're bootstrapping it, right, you don't have hardly any closings, your pipeline's not full. You have to at that point. But once things start rolling, you need to leverage that crap out. You just need to be done with it and spend your time doing the things that you're good at and that make sense and bring value and frankly, joy and happiness to your life.
That's right. Yeah, so I mean, that's actually a great segue into talking about how to structure your day-to-day operations. And knowing that you are a McAllowitz fan, I like you so much more. But
are you going to talk about clockwork now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So a lot of us struggle trying to figure out how to do more. So when we're first starting out, I know that I was working probably 12-ish hours a day. I know that you were a workhorse for a long time as you were trying to figure this out, Dustin. I'm sure when you got started, you were probably spending more time than you wanted to at work. Well, if you Google productivity, you're going to come up with countless amounts of books that go over how to be more productive. Well, at the end of the day, what productivity means is you, as the individual, as the business owner, as the realtor, are doing more in less time. So on average, it's about 1,000 minutes in any given day that we can spend, but you can cram as much time or as many activities into that 1,000 minutes as you can, but you have a ceiling. So what the book, Clockwork by Mike McAllowitz, talks about is being more efficient. So instead of focusing on how to get the work done, it helps you focus on who should be getting the work done. So over the last year, so I came across the book while I was doing dishes. He was on a podcast. I got curious, bought his book, and then just started listening to it while I was doing my chores around the house. Once again, none of us could leave the house. So what he basically talks about in the book is there's 4 phases of every single business. Now in real estate, we only have 3 of those phases. So the phases are attraction, conversion, delivery, and then collection. So I'm going to take out collection because the way that real estate agents and lenders get paid is we get paid by our broker. Mm-hmm. So Dustin, you on the other hand, you have that collection phase because after services are rendered, then you have to not necessarily go after, but then you have to work on the process of getting paid for the job that you did.
Correct.
Right. So as far as our audience is concerned, real estate agents and lenders, so attraction. So what is attraction typically? What do you think of when you think of attraction?
Like an attraction model? Well, I just think by attraction, I don't know. It's a weird question.
No, yeah, I apologize. It was kind of an abstract concept when I first started reading. So attraction would be your marketing. That would be your branding, your advertising. So you are trying to be a magnet for new clients. So that is his own part of the process itself, and it's typically the first one, because you can't close a deal without having someone come to you.
Correct.
So a lot of us get stuck in that sales mode, where we're working on trying to gather as many leads, as many referrals as possible. Well, the next phase is conversion. So conversion for a lender would be, once a client raises their hand, we've done a good job, they like us. Conversion would be getting them pre-approved. So that's getting them ready to go. And then delivery would be, once they're in contract, now we actually have to perform, do the things that we said that we were going to do in our marketing and our advertising, and then get them across the finish line. So what I have found is I was doing all phases myself, but spending more time in the delivery phase than I was in any other bucket. And I think that's where a lot of agents get stuck, is they market, convert, and then they spend their time closing those deals that they have, and spending very little time actually trying to attract new business. So that ends up with what? The real estate roller coaster?
Yeah, it's a natural cycle. As a solo agent, you're going to build up a big pipeline. You're going to close the pipeline, and then you're going to have to work, twice as hard next time to build up that pipeline again. And it's just this never-ending cycle. And for me, it was amazing as you start learning this industry. And I was like, oh my God, you wear so many hats. I mean, it's amazing how many hats you wear. I'm like, how can one person be responsible for doing this many things simultaneously and making sure we deliver, the keys to someone's house at the right time? And you start going through it, and you learn. I mean, you stumble, because you're going to fail forward doing it. But like that time piece, and that's what I'm starting to really study now. Like, where does the time go? How can we multiply time?
Right.
Because I deal with some very successful people in my business, and they've got 10 businesses, and I'm like, I've got this one, and it takes up all my time, and you've got 10. How are you a magician? Like, what exactly? How does that work? So it's been this actually. Yesterday, I was pulling up this quote. It was a person on YouTube, and they were saying you multiply time is giving yourself the emotional permission to do things today that give you more time tomorrow.
Oh, exactly.
And they went, and this is not just one of those cliche sayings, like they did a real study about this, and they went to some high level achievers, and they're like, how is it that you guys do so much more in so little time? And what they front load their time is they do things today that are going to save themselves time down the road.
You're investing.
Yeah, and it's the little things. It's the little things that we procrastinate, that we hate doing, so we put off. But by putting that off, man, it's going to be a time suck for you down the road.
Right.
You got to do it eventually. So those guys are really good at taking care of those things up front, and it opens up all this time. Or they maybe never have to do it again. Maybe it's systemized or automated, so they never have to do it again, and that saves them time.
Right. And to jump in there, it's typically those things that are the most emotionally draining. So not only are they now having to put in the same amount of time or more time by deferring it, but it also emotionally drains them, right? And for me, it's the eat the frog, right? Isn't there a book? It's about getting that done. Something that maybe feels emotionally draining to you right now. If you just get it done now, you'll save yourself so much time in the future. Give yourself permission to do it now.
So what are we actually talking about here? So we're talking about, if there are 3 phases for agents, 4 phases for most businesses, we're talking about, okay, so as a business owner, you can only do so much during the year.
Correct.
Just a year and those kind of things. So how do you do less and still get the job done? Well, what that amounts to is finding someone to replace you in your business. So with each facet of your business, this is something that my father-in-law gave me, as he is constantly looking for ways to replace himself. Okay, so for the delivery phase, I am inherently not a great loan officer. I know that might sound cliche, but I'm not a great loan officer. What I'm good at is I'm good at communicating like this, providing value, talking to clients, but calculating income, pulling credit, those things are not what I should be doing. So working backwards, we hired Hunter. Hunter is a young man, and kind of give you what he does is he handles our delivery phase. That's all he does. So he's not printing flyers. He's not doing any marketing. So his sole job is to get people across the finish line once they're in contract as fast and as smooth as possible. So with that, we have his job specificities of what he's supposed to be doing day to day so airtight that he comes in, he knows exactly what he's doing, and I don't want him deviating from that in any way. Yeah. So our contract to close, our clear to close average went from 28 days down to 13 days. So 13 days clear to close. Now, most of the time he's looking at me like, what should I do next? Because I got everything else done. Now, I wouldn't have been able to do that myself. So having him on board, having him focus on that primarily, it has just been an absolute game changer for us. So I know that you've had teams, built them up, retired them, and then you're on your way back up again. So what are you focusing on right now?
Yeah, it's the thing. Okay, so earlier this year, I sat down with my coach and I had to make a list of here's the things I hate doing, and here's the things that fill me up. I should only be doing the things that fill me up, but the dollar producing activities. Mm-hmm. I'm the rainmaker of my business. So anything that I should be doing at any given time is, I need to be making calls, I need to be on an appointment, I need to be at closings, or negotiating a deal. If it's anything other than that, I need to find a systematic, automated way, and another person, and I've got somebody sitting across from us on the other side of the camera that I found who identified who does those things at a much higher level, and it fills their cup up to be doing those things. And there's things that they love doing that I just can't stand. I mean, I'd rather just claw my eyeballs out at doing some of these things, and they do them at such a high level, and they love doing them.
Exactly.
And so you need to find yourself, that's just it's a leverage piece, but that's one side of it. The other thing I'm trying to learn in this business is the focus aspect. Mm-hmm. I think you can multitask so much that it's a point of diminishing returns if you're not careful.
Right.
You start things that you never finish. And I found myself starting things that I was never finishing. Mm-hmm. So I have to keep reminding myself, we need to focus on one thing and one thing only. And, Catherine across here, she'll laugh because she knows my mind, I'm a visionary. I want to start doing more and more and more.
Right.
But we have to finish what we started from the first day, So that's always, it's a habit that we're building, and we're getting better and better at doing it. But I just have to keep reminding myself, as soon as I started getting spread thin, I have to stop what I'm doing, simplify it, and just do one thing.
Exactly. So one of the things that you touched on is one of the things that Mike also touches on in the book is, okay, so if you're telling me, if Ryan, Oliver, and Dustin, you guys are telling me that I need to do less and I need to hire somebody, so who do I hire? And then really what it comes down to is you need to simplify your job tasks for, say, delivery, for example, or your attraction or your conversion, whatever part of the business you need help in and you need yourself not to be doing. What you need to look at is not necessarily the skills that they have. Are they good with Excel? Can they do Facebook? It's not that. It's what God-given talents, what is their acumen that their creator gave them that you can leverage. So like Hunter, for example. So Hunter is not inherently a great salesperson, but his attention to detail, his time management, I can't touch it with a 10-foot pole. So when we were looking for Hunter, I found him and I knew exactly what I wanted, and then he was a great fit, and luckily it proved to work out. So if you are looking for someone to handle your contract to close, because that's typically what most realtors first hire.
Yeah, it's somebody, a couple of first hires, and we'll get to that. Some people hire an assistant, other people hire a contract coordinator, others hire an admin. And again, you heard that assistant, admin. Those are two different people.
Right.
Okay. An assistant, that's someone who's reactionary to what you're telling them to be doing. Mm-hmm. We do it this way. Gene Rivers, he's one of my favorite Keller Williams personalities.
Okay.
But he explained, and that was just an aha moment in my business because I had other assistants in my past, but that's exactly what they were. They were an assistant.
Right.
They only did things when I told them to do things. And what I was really looking for was the Rocket Fuel. And that's a great book. You need to read Rocket Fuel. But that's how I hired this next person, was Catherine. Catherine is an executive administrator. She owns her role, and she is more proactive into getting into the nitty gritty of my business and helping us streamline, systematize and automate our practices.
Right.
And that was the difference. And I finally found that person. That was a big, change in my business. And I'm so grateful to have that person.
Yeah. So Dustin, I know that you said you have a team. What are some of the things that maybe you've made mistakes on, or people in your office or others like you that have you've seen made mistakes as far as hiring somebody?
Well, I will be honest. This is an ever evolving space for me. And I tell people always up front, like, hiring people is just a crapshoot, right? Like sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. Being clear with someone and understanding and creating expectations and job duties or roles is really will help you be more successful. I know, in my current position, people evolve. That's one other thing to watch out for. I hired a lady. She started as the admin. She really likes bookkeeping, so she's transitioned into more of a bookkeeper role. And now we have a new admin, right? And so make sure that I think to be successful and to make sure that you're going to have people that will work for you in a long-term capacity. Make sure that there's the ability for them to evolve and to grow or to do new things. Because Catherine, I've had a couple of discussions with her. She seems awesome from everything, and it sounds like Oliver now is working really well with her. But at some point right now, certain things are filling her cup. At some point it might need to be a little bit different. So having the ability for people to move, I think is and be dynamic within your business, I think is a good thing.
I'm glad you brought that up, Dustin, because we had to have that conversation. I think there's, I told Catherine, hey, you're going to be drinking from a fire hose for the first 6 months of this business. I said, but I need you to learn all facets of the business. Then I'm going to have her hire somebody else to take care of the things that aren't filling up her cup anymore. Because I just want her to be totally committed to things that fill up her cup. She wants to come into the door every day. And if there's ever a time that those things don't fill you up anymore, we find somebody else. And there's so many resources out there. We just outsource it to somebody else, and somebody else does it now.
And by doing that, you have found a way to give her job satisfaction instead of her just coming in punching a clock, or her coming in and punching a clock. They are living through their gifts, and then therefore you're less likely to have churn with the people that you bring on your team.
Yeah, and I think that's because they came from the corporate world, and it's so rigid. They hire you. Here's your job responsibilities, and you do this forever. And then they go, and that might change. And I hated that. So I just want to make sure I build a culture on my team that let's revisit our job responsibilities, and let's just make sure that that's what we want to be doing. Mm-hmm. And if it's not, let's talk about it. Let's find somebody else who can do it.
Yep, I agree. So the one lesson that I'm hoping that you're getting out of this last section here about how to structure your business, your day-to-day, is stop trying to do everything in your business. You're killing yourself and you're losing money. So just imagine, and it's kind of pie in the sky for most people that they want to have a team. But if you think about who you want to be in 10 years, 5 years from now, and is that running a team? Is that doing this, doing that? But if you start working on putting those pieces in place now, you will get there versus just staying in that bottom level, just staying in that sales mode all the time, not saving your money and not getting more efficient as you go. You're never going to leave a legacy for the people that are depending upon you. You're basically going to be a car that's going to run out of gas at some point.
Well, you create a job. And you don't want to create a job, you want to create a business. So, I want to leave my job one day and I want that business to pay me. But if I think what we end up doing is we create this just really awful job for ourselves, because I think when you first start off in real estate, like everybody, it's fun, it's exciting. It really is. Mm-hmm. And then as the honeymoon phase of the business wears off and, now you're a few years into it and you see how complex it is, man, if you're not careful, you really create yourself a job that you have no way out of.
Right.
And it's just a lot to contend with. So just be careful. Again, just make that list. Here's the things I like doing. Here's the things I don't. If it's something that you don't, find somebody else who does. There's so many gig workers out there. I know that it takes money, but it takes money to make money too, right? So you have to, figure out how much is my time really worth?
Absolutely.
Who do I want to spend it with?
Mm-hmm.
And you get really clear on those principles.
Yeah. So I think what you're talking about is knowing your hourly rate.
Yes.
And then making business decisions based upon what is most effective in getting that hourly rate higher.
Yeah.
So is that something, so we could talk about that a little bit, but Dustin, is that something that you would help your clients with, is helping them figure out their hourly rate?
I typically, that's one that I haven't done a lot of. I'm happy to do it with someone. It's an interesting concept. And another Mike Michalowicz book is called The Pumpkin Plant. And that's another way to kind of deal with. Now, for real estate agents, that's probably a little less applicable, that book, that you don't have 8,000 clients and you're trying to find out which ones you need to fire because they're just sucking up all your time. But right, like it's the same idea. So understanding your hourly rate and it just allows you to then go out and say, you know what, I can hire a $12 to $15 an hour employee to do this and save myself my $75 or $100 or $300 an hour rate to make money on the bigger things. So
right, like you said, you get more picky with the things that you spend your time on because it's either going to increase your hourly rate or decrease your hourly rate. And honestly, I grew up with video games. It almost becomes a video game score that you monitor on a regular basis. Oh man, I'm falling behind a little bit. I got to score some extra points and those kind of things. So it becomes a little bit of a self-competition.
No, I'm so glad you said that. I mean, you got to be really careful what you're saying yes to.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I say yes to everything. And it's still to this day, like I have to learn, I'm learning more and more ways to say no to things because it really is robbing myself or robbing my business of making money. And because, we had to get another phone. My phone every day gets just lit up with messages. It's not from clients, it's from family and friends.
Oh,
and these are my family and friends. And I want to interact with them. But at the same time, they are a time suck. They take away all my focus, And so and then there's other clients and things that, I can't answer to all the time.
Sure.
And I feel bad that so we have two phones now that routes past my phone, goes to my assistant.
Nice.
So my, admin, Catherine. So as soon as I don't answer after 3 rings, she knows, I can't physically answer the phone and she can pick it up.
Love it.
And they can take necessarily 90% of the time, she can just take care of whatever that phone call was about. And I don't even know about it.
And take care of it. By you fixing that's an efficiency thing for your team, protects your hourly rate. But at the same time, you're still serving your clients at a high level because that's one of the biggest complaints about agents and loan officers is our communication is just crap.
It's a win-win. My clients get service better.
Mm-hmm.
B, it's going to make me more money. Because I get to do the dollar producing activities that I want to do. And, I have somebody who's picking up the slack, takes care of all the rest that's going on behind the scenes.
Yep.
It saves me a lot of conversations throughout the day, but people are getting serviced and that's what matters.
That's right. So we're running towards the top of the hour here. So what I want you guys to do, I'm going to let each of you guys take a turn, is what is the one thing, so we've talked about a lot, probably talking about the fire hose, we've talked about a lot. So Dustin, for someone who is watching now or the replay, what is the one thing that you hope that they come away with from our conversation today?
I think the first thing or the one thing would be make sure that you have a plan of action, how to tackle whatever you want to tackle, right? If we're talking about finances, what's the plan of action to take care of your finances? Are you going to set up buckets, and what are your buckets going to be? Are you going to hire a bookkeeper? Are you going to be setting up a business to save on Social Security and Medicare tax? Who are you going to reach out to help you accomplish those things, right? Have a plan. If you want to start working less in your business, you can work on your business. How are you going to go about doing that? How are you going to take how or when are you going to schedule the time to look at the tasks, to know which ones you need to offload and leverage out? And how are you going to do that? Are you going to go to a VA? Are you going to have somebody in the office? Are you going to hire transaction coordinators? Right? Make sure that you you take the time to think about what the number one thing is, what's causing you the most pain, and then take the time to set up the plan for it.
So think about what you're going to do, then execute.
Correct.
Nice. And what about you? What's your number one thing that you want to have people take away?
Well, I want anybody who's watching this, I really want them to go get the E-Myth book.
Okay.
Real estate. I had so many ahas when I read that. I think, for anybody who's just starting out, or even if they're better in the business, they'll read that and they'll take away so many good nuggets from that. And then my last thing, what we were talking about is just don't try to be a hero and do everything in your business. I try to be a hero all the time. I try to say yes to everybody I come in contact with. Don't sabotage yourself that way. Surround yourself with really good people. It starts simple as just your loan officer. I mean, Brian here is an amazing resource for technology.
Making me blush.
I know, but for any marketing or technology pieces, like I just have one person to call, and it's going to be Ryan, because he's going to know the answer. And if he doesn't, he knows somebody who will.
Yep. So the one thing that I want to, it's going to be probably a little more obscure, but the one thing that I hope that you guys have picked up on from our conversation today is each of us, Dustin, Oliver, and myself, is we are learners. We are readers. So in each of our businesses, I'm sure that you guys can chime in here, but the more that we have taken a step back and put the Netflix down or put down Instagram and actually picked up a book, whether an audio book or a physical book, our business has taken another progressive step, and another one, and another one, another one. So keep learning. So find things that you're struggling with. There are books that will help you fix that. And if you don't have a book recommendation or book library, talk to us, talk to your peers, find out what books that they're reading right now. So leaders are readers, and and I know this is cliche, but the more you learn, the more you earn. So don't just take everything at face value. There are people out there that have the answer. You do not need to reinvent the wheel yourself. So whether it's Mike Michalowicz, E-Myth, Rocket Fuel, whatever the books that we've talked about today, keep learning, keep progressing, keep evolving. Because once again, you deserve better than just to be stuck in sales mode in the real estate roller coaster all the time. So Dustin, if someone wants to reach out to you and take that first step with you and have you join their team, what would that look like?
So the first thing is to get an appointment set up so that we can just talk about what you have going on, what things you're needing, and we can put a plan in place together as to how to get you to your end goal. And so the best thing for that is to reach out to my assistant, Nikki, and she'll get a time scheduled. That can be done by either calling my office, 801-980-9495, or emailing her, Nikki at kingstaxllc.com. And I think, Ryan, you have those, and I assume you'll put them someplace for us.
What's that number again?
801-980-9495.
801, you get 804.
Yep, 801. Here we go.
Okay. And just getting a time set up, because that's the first thing, right? I can't help if I don't know what's going on. So finding out what's going on and then putting a plan in action.
Yeah.
I'm such a big fan of Dustin. I hope anybody who's watching this, please take him up and reach out to this guy. I mean, seriously, like my first interaction with Dustin, I mean, like, it was like my financial mama bear. Like, I was just, everything was so confusing and things. And like, he just in layman's terms, like, sat me down. He's got this nice calming voice. And like, it was like therapy, it's like financial therapy. We're gonna do this, we're gonna do this. I'm like, you can do that. Yeah, I can do that. And, we do this. And it's just like this natural progression. And then I looked up and I'm like, let's all take care of it. It's easy.
Well, shit.
And so please reach out. And he saved me so much money. I mean, this guy he is awesome at what he does, and I hope anybody watching this reaches out.
Nice. Now, if someone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
They can reach out through me on Instagram, Oliver Chapman 50, and then they can reach out to me by email, oliverchapman@kw.com.
There you go. So, gentlemen, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you guys so much. I'm glad that you say yes very easily, because I am very happy you were here today. And Dustin, thank you, man. You were a great value add.
Thanks for having me.
Doing this, you're very welcome. So if you guys have any questions, once again, this replay is going to be up forever. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, and also YouTube. So we're going to leave this content up so you guys can watch it over and over again. Once again, we're going to be streaming every Tuesday that I'm not teaching CE. So the second Tuesday of every month, we're teaching CE. So I'm going to take that off from this kind of thing. But you guys can expect a live stream like this every single Tuesday where we provide value, answer your questions, and try to help you become everyone's favorite agent. Once again, gentlemen, thank you very much. An absolute pleasure. And you guys, I'll see you guys next week. Talk to you guys soon.